So let's talk about John Carpenter, right? This dude, this guy, I don't know. In regards to some aspects, there's no one better than Carpenter, right? In the 80s, you could argue that there's no one better than Carpenter. And I would actually be very, very on board with that. Like in regards to, I think just the way he made movies. You know, you can look at, let's say, Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi, or all three Indiana Jones movies are in the 80s, and Blade Runner and E.T. and all these major Back to the Future, all of these epic films that we know, that we quote, that we love, but still 1982, baby. The Thing. 85 for Big Trouble in Little China. When was it? Was it 86 or something for They Live? I don't know, 81 for Escape from New York. Carpenter in the 80s, in my opinion, was just hit after hit after hit. And still, like the bigger, badder guys that he went up against, his movies absolutely still test the tenets of time, or the test of time. They still pass that. So, where the hell's he been? Right? He's been kind of hanging out for a while, but apparently after 9 years, he's teasing a potential return to directing. Saying here that Carpenter has teased his potential return to filmmaking, including the genre of horror movies. Well, you're not getting any younger, sir. He's at Cannes right now, and he was just given an award. And of course, he does the badass, like, this pose and stuff. So true Carpenter fashion. But I think a lot of us out there want one specific thing from Carpenter, and that's him and Kurt Russell to team up again. Anyway, says here that Carpenter is one of the most iconic directors in movie history, having produced such seminal horror classics as Halloween and The Thing. But it's been 9 years since his last movie, The Ward, back in 2010. And The Ward, I will admit, wasn't as good as it could have been, but still, it's Carpenter, and so it does get a pass in a number of ways. So the man says in an interview with Collider that he is interested in returning, saying, "I don't have one scheduled, but I'm working on things. I've made a lot of movies and I got burned out and had to stop for a while. I have to have a life. Circumstance would have to be correct for me to do it again. I'd love to make a little horror film. That would be great, or a big adventure film. That would be a project. It would be a project like that's budgeted correctly. Nowadays, they make these young directors do a $2 million movie when the movie is written for $10 million. So you have to squeeze it all in there, and I don't want to do that anymore." And look, if you go back to old Carpenter, his old early films, they were lower budget. They worked within a budget, but they still worked because they were always grounded in the way that they were made. They were always grounded in the world that he had built around them, right? Escape from New York, along, what was it? Manhattan Island is a prison facility. And you know what? It looked and felt like a prison facility. It looked and felt like what he conveyed it to be. The world of the research station, or the outpost in Antarctica for The Thing. Big Trouble in Little China, that one block in Chinatown in San Francisco, and all the magic contained within. These are things that he has done. I mean, hell, the whole world that they live. He can ground stories in reality, in his reality, and tell them. So it's like, look, here's the thing. He wants to do either a horror film or a big adventure movie. I'm not going to lie when I say this, but I don't think big was an unintentional word. I think big means one thing and one thing only. All right. No one wants to see a sequel to Big Trouble in Little China starring The Rock, which it is now confirmed to be a sequel, not a remake. What we want a Big Trouble in Little China 2 starring Old Man Jack. Because you know what they say about Jack Burton at the age of 75. He still kicks some serious ass. Him out there at the Pork Chop Express are still rolling the freeways. That's my theory, my hope at least, that somehow Jack Burton's still out there. And I don't want The Rock to be in this movie, because The Rock, as much as I love The Rock, it's always The Rock. It's always The Rock. But I want John Carpenter and Kurt Russell to do one more movie together. Right? I want it to be Old Man Jack, which there is a comic for, and it's very weird. Like Jack Burton basically during the apocalypse, which at this point, screw it. I would see that done. And I hope that's what happens. I hope that after the success of Halloween, and Jason Blum would look at him and go, "So what is it you want to do? Oh, you want to do Big Trouble in Little China too? Is Kurt Russell available? Oh, he is. Great. Why don't we make this thing a reality? Why don't we do this? Why don't we make that your swan song of filmmaking?" Right? Because I just look, Carpenter to me is and will always be the absolute shit. I love the guy. I love his work. Not only his directing, his writing, the worlds he's built, the characters he's created. Jack Burton, Snake Plissken, I mean, Kurt Russell and him, simpatico. But not his music is great too. Like, you go on YouTube and look up the Big Trouble in Little China just soundtrack that he did and listen to the score. I still pop it on, and the movie's well over 30 years old. I still pop it on and listen to the music, listen to the soundtrack, because this dude's the master in everything that he does, and I want to see more from him. Absolutely, 100%.